Daily Day here for Guitar Impulse. Today's lesson, Modes, Spiraling into Madness.
The modes, or church modes as they are commonly called, are a set of scales which originated with the ancient Greeks. The names of the church modes can be traced as far back as Aristotle or Plato in 350 BC. According to Greek beliefs, each mode was thought to influence a person's character and mood. The early Christian church around 50 AD took this philosophy to heart and began using modes in worship services, each with one being used at a different time and part of the service. By the Middle Ages, they were being utilized in Gregorian chant. Around 1675, the modes began to be misinterpreted as being permutations or derived from the major scale. That is, each mode was wrongly viewed as simply starting on a different scale degree of a major scale, which uses the pattern 2 whole tones, 1 half tone, 3 whole tones, and 1 half tone. In a major scale, the first mode would simply start on C. The second mode would start on D. The third mode would then continue on to the third scale degree E. The rest of the modes followed in the exact same manner. While this is indeed a great way to learn the modes, it should be understood that each mode is really its own scale and not simply a derived scale. The first mode is called Ionian. It is used in a lot of top 40 music. Nursery rhymes, jazz, country, all use this mode. It is bright and cheerful sounding. Examples include Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and Love Me Tender by Elvis Presley. The second mode is called Dorian. Guitarists like Eddie Van Halen and Santana are often associated with this mode, which has been described as melancholy and very soulful sounding. It has a very unresolved sound to it. One great example is Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult, which uses F-sharp Dorian in the main riff. The third mode is Phrygian. Guitarists like Yves Malmsteen and Al Di Meola love using this eerie or Spanish-sounding mode. The fourth mode is Lydian. This mode is used in a lot of contemporary jazz, but also in a lot of video games and cartoons. One example is the theme from the Jetsons. Guitarists like Satriani and Steve Vai use it in their music. It is by far the brightest sounding of all the modes. It sounds dreamy and mysterious. The fifth mode is Mixolydian. This bluesy sounding mode is used by guitarists Michael Schenker and Slash of Guns N' Roses. Sweet Child of Mine is one good example of this mode. The sixth mode is Aeolian. This is a dark, sad sounding mode. Many heavy metal bands of the 1980s use it quite often. Randy Rhoads is one great example of one guitar player who used it in the song Crazy Train. The last and seventh mode is Locrian. This mysterious and unusual sounding mode has primarily been used in jazz, though it is really a derived scale. It was invented in the 19th century to complete the theoretical picture of all the modes. It was never a scale that was used in Gregorian chant. Each mode really deserves its own lesson, but let's look at one example to get a feel for it. The D Dorian mode uses the following pattern: whole step, half step, 3 whole steps, half step, and another whole step. In order to keep the same pattern for C Dorian, we must add a few accidentals like E flat and B flat. Since these two accidentals are also in the key of B flat major, both scales are inharmonic to one another. So how do we know if a song is in either C Dorian or B flat major? The best way to know is their respective chords. The chords we use not only differentiate each mode, but tell us whether or not we are in an harmonic key. Using Roman numerals to represent each chord, the C Ionian will use a capital 1, capital 4, and a capital 5 chord. These are all major chords. C Dorian will use a minor or a small 1 chord and a capital 4 chord. C Phrygian will use a small 1 and a flatted 2 chord. C Lydian uses a capital 1 and a capital 2 chord to distinguish it from the other modes. C. Mixolydian uses a capital 1, capital 4, and a flatted 7th chord. C. Aeolian uses a small 1, small 4, and small 5 chord, which are all minor. It can also be distinguished by using the flatted 6th and flatted 7th chord, which operate like the subdominant and dominant. C. Locrian uses the diminished 1 chord to distinguish itself from all the other modes. The modes can be ordered according to their sound. Lydian, Ionian, and Mixolydian are brighter, major sounding modes, while Dorian, Aeolian, and Phrygian are darker and minor sounding modes. Locrian has the most accidentals of all the modes and sounds the darkest when compared against the Lydian mode. Once we order the modes according to brightest, we can connect them together by constructing a three-dimensional spiral. Notice that the spiral begins on Lydian in the middle and ends on Locrian on the right side. Sometimes this spiral is referred to as the spiral into madness. This concludes the lesson on modes. Answer the following 10 questions to see if you understood this introductory lesson on modes. Number 1. What two classical Greek philosophers are mentioned in this lesson? Number 2. What common name is given to the modes? Number 3. What scale are the modes easily derived from? Number 4. What notes are in the E Phrygian scale? Number 5. Write out the pattern of whole and half steps for C Dorian mode. Number 6. What key is inharmonic to C Dorian? Number 7. What mode sounds the brightest? Number 8. What mode sounds the darkest? Number 9. How many modes are used in Western music? And number 10. What shape do the modes make when connected together?